Welcome to TrueCrime Unveiled Podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us. In the heart of Orlando, Florida, a vibrant city known for its entertainment and inclusivity, lies a somber tale. A tale of a night meant for celebration, tragically transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror. We are delving into the harrowing events of June 12, 2016, at the Pulse Nightclub, a popular venue in the city's vibrant LGBTQ+ community. What began as a typical Saturday night, pulsating with music and laughter, would soon descend into the deadliest mass shooting by a single gunman in U.S. history at the time. This tragedy left an indelible scar on the nation, raising questions about security, hate crimes, and the pervasive nature of violence. The Pulse nightclub, a sanctuary for many, became a scene of unspeakable violence. As the hours ticked by, the vibrant atmosphere of music and dance morphed into a chaotic nightmare. The sounds of celebration were replaced by the staccato bursts of gunfire, echoing through the packed club. Patrons, once united by rhythm and camaraderie, were suddenly plunged into a desperate fight for survival. In the darkness and confusion, fear and panic reigned supreme. We will meticulously piece together the events of that horrific night, exploring the timeline, the motives of the perpetrator, and the devastating consequences that unfolded within those walls. It was Latin night at Pulse, and the club was brimming with life, nearing its 2 a.m. closing time. The energy inside was palpable, the music infectious. Outside, however, a storm was brewing. Omar Mateen, a 29-year-old security guard, armed with a Sig Sauer MCX semi-automatic rifle and a Glock 17 9mm semi-automatic pistol, approached the club. His arrival was unassuming, almost blending into the backdrop of the bustling nightlife. Yet within minutes, this seemingly ordinary individual would unleash a torrent of violence, forever changing the lives of countless individuals and leaving an enduring mark on the city of Orlando. This is a story of unimaginable loss and resilience, a story we must examine to understand the complexities of such a horrific event. Before the horrific events of June 12, 2016, the Pulse nightclub was a vibrant hub for Orlando's LGBTQ+ community. It was a place where people felt safe, accepted, and free to express themselves. Regulars described it as a sanctuary, a place pulsating with life, music, and camaraderie. Saturday nights were particularly special. Latin night, drawing a diverse crowd eager to dance and celebrate. Imagine the rhythmic beat of salsa and reggaeton, the colorful lights flashing across the dance floor, the laughter and conversations mixing with the music. The air, thick with the scent of perfume and sweat, a testament to the energy of the night. For many, Pulse was more than just a nightclub. It was a second home, a family. It's vital to understand this atmosphere, this sense of community, to truly grasp the devastating impact of the tragedy that unfolded. Indeed, understanding the context of the Pulse nightclub as a safe haven is crucial. Many patrons described it as a place where they could escape judgment and be their authentic selves. One regular, a young man named Luis, often spoke about how Pulse offered a sense of belonging he hadn't found elsewhere. He'd arrive early, claiming his usual spot at the bar, greeting friends with warm embraces. He described the atmosphere as electric, full of joy and acceptance. He loved the music, the dancing, the feeling of liberation that came with being surrounded by chosen family. He felt safe within those walls, a feeling tragically shattered in the early hours of that Sunday morning. These personal accounts paint a vivid picture of the community that thrived within Pulse, a community that was irrevocably altered by the violence. The night of June 11, 2016, started like any other Saturday at Pulse. People arrived, dressed to impress, ready to enjoy Latin night. Friends met at the bar, exchanging stories and laughter. Couples swayed to the music, lost in their own world. The atmosphere was festive, the air buzzing with anticipation. Outside, the warm Florida night air was filled with the sounds of music and chatter spilling out from the open doors. Inside, the lights pulsed and shifted, casting an array of colors across the crowded dance floor. The DJ kept the energy high, spinning a mix of Latin rhythms that kept bodies moving. It was a night of celebration, a night of joy, a night that no one could have predicted would end in such unimaginable horror. We've spoken to several survivors who recounted the vibrant energy of that night. One woman, who wishes to remain anonymous, described the infectious joy that permeated the club. She remembers the music, the dancing, the feeling of connection with the people around her. She talked about the sense of freedom and acceptance, How everyone, regardless of background or identity, seemed to come together in a shared celebration of life. She vividly recalled the moment she stepped onto the dance floor, the bass vibrating through her body, the flashing lights creating a kaleidoscope of colors. These seemingly ordinary details now hold a poignant significance, representing a time of innocence before the violence erupted, forever changing the lives of those present. We've established the vibrant, pulsating heart of the Pulse Nightclub. It was a sanctuary, a space for the LGBTQ+ community to celebrate, to express themselves freely, and to find kinship. Patrons often described a feeling of family within those walls, a shared understanding and acceptance that permeated the air. Regulars had their favorite spots, their familiar faces, their routines within the club's familiar layout. The night of June 11, 2016, began like any other Saturday night at Pulse, with music filling the air, bodies swaying to the rhythm, and conversations flowing amidst the energetic atmosphere. It was Latin night, a particularly popular event, and the club was teeming with life. But the normalcy of that evening was about to be shattered, irrevocably. Let's piece together the timeline leading up to the disruption, that fracture in the ordinary, that changed everything. Indeed. As the night wore on, the energy inside Pulse reached a fever pitch. Witnesses recall a carefree atmosphere, filled with laughter and dancing. Security cameras captured the steady flow of people coming and going, mingling on the patio, and enjoying the music inside. Around 2 a.m., just as the club was nearing its peak capacity, Omar Mateen, a 29-year-old security guard, entered the establishment. He was armed with a Sig Sauer MCX semi-automatic rifle and a Glock 17 9mm semi-automatic pistol. He blended into the crowd initially, his movements seemingly ordinary, almost unnoticed amidst the bustling activity. But the chilling reality was that Mateen was about to unleash a horrific act of violence, forever staining the vibrant tapestry of Pulse Nightclub with tragedy. This seemingly ordinary act of entering the club was, in fact, the shadow creeping in, the subtle disruption we've been talking about. Witnesses inside the club recounted the moments leading up to the first shots. Some described a sudden, sharp crack that initially sounded like fireworks, or perhaps part of the music. This confusion, this brief moment of misinterpretation, highlights the insidious nature of the disruption. One moment, the music was pulsating, the lights flashing, creating a sensory overload that was part of the club's allure. The next, that very sensory experience masked the deadly sound of gunfire, delaying the realization of the horror that was unfolding. This initial confusion, this misinterpretation, allowed precious seconds to tick by before the true nature of the sounds became terrifyingly clear. The shadow had deepened. That's right. Those crucial seconds, the delayed comprehension of the danger, are significant when examining the timeline of the massacre. The first official 911 call came in at 2:02 a.m., just moments after the first shots rang out. But in that short span of time, Mateen had already begun his rampage, moving through the crowded club, firing indiscriminately. The joyous atmosphere was instantly replaced by panic and chaos as people scrambled for cover, desperately seeking escape routes. The music, once a unifying force, was drowned out by the piercing sounds of gunfire and screams. The vibrant lights, previously illuminating a scene of celebration, now cast flickering shadows on a scene of unimaginable terror. The sanctuary had become a hunting ground. In the early morning hours of June 12, 2016, the vibrant pulse of Orlando's nightlife was tragically silenced. The Pulse Nightclub, a popular LGBTQ+ venue, was hosting its Latin night, drawing a large and diverse crowd. Around 2 a.m., as the music throbbed and the dance floor pulsed with energy, Omar Mateen, a 29-year-old security guard, entered the club armed with a Sig Sauer MCX semi-automatic rifle and a Glock 17 9mm semi-automatic pistol. What began as a night of celebration quickly descended into unimaginable horror. Mateen systematically began firing into the crowd, trapping hundreds of patrons inside. The initial bursts of gunfire were mistaken by some for fireworks or part of the music, but the chilling reality quickly set in as panicked screams filled the air. The chaos inside the club was absolute. People scrambled for cover, hiding beneath tables, behind the bar, and in restrooms. The flashing lights and deafening sounds of gunfire disoriented many, making escape even more difficult. Some managed to flee through a back exit or by breaking windows, while others desperately called and texted loved ones, their messages conveying both terror and love in the face of imminent danger. Outside, The first responding officers arrived on the scene, encountering a chaotic and terrifying scene. They immediately engaged Mateen in a firefight, attempting to contain the threat and provide a pathway for survivors to escape. The scene outside mirrored the chaos inside, with injured victims stumbling out, desperate for help, and frantic family members searching for information about their loved ones. The ensuing 3 hours were a harrowing standoff between Mateen and law enforcement. He barricaded himself inside a bathroom with hostages, continuing to fire sporadically. During this time, he made several 911 calls, pledging allegiance to the Islamic State and expressing anti-LGBTQ+ sentiments. These calls provided a chilling insight into his motives, revealing a complex mix of extremist ideology and personal demons. Negotiators attempted to establish communication with Mateen, hoping to de-escalate the situation and secure the release of the hostages. But their efforts proved futile. The situation remained volatile and unpredictable. At approximately 5 a.m., after hours of agonizing uncertainty, the Orlando Police Department made the decision to breach the bathroom wall using an armored vehicle. The ensuing confrontation was brief but violent, resulting in Mateen's death. In the aftermath, the true scale of the massacre became horrifyingly clear. 49 innocent lives were lost, making it the deadliest mass shooting by a single gunman in U.S. history at the time, and the deadliest incident of violence against LGBTQ+ people in the nation's history. The Pulse Nightclub shooting left an indelible scar on the Orlando community and the nation, sparking a national debate about gun control, terrorism, and LGBTQ+ rights. The initial reports were fragmented, chaotic. The sheer volume of calls flooding the 911 dispatch center painted a horrifying picture. Even before the full extent of the carnage was known, first responders arriving at Pulse Nightclub were met with a scene of unimaginable devastation. The sounds of gunfire had abruptly ceased, replaced by the moans of the injured and the piercing cries of those desperately searching for loved ones. Outside, the growing crowd of onlookers, many frantic with worry, added to the surreal and nightmarish atmosphere. The initial confusion about the number of shooters, coupled with the ongoing threat of potential explosives, further amplified the fear and tension. It was a scene of pure chaos, a stark contrast to the vibrant celebration that had been taking place just hours before. The immediate aftermath was a blur of activity. Medical personnel worked tirelessly, triaging victims and rushing the critically wounded to nearby hospitals. Law enforcement secured the perimeter, establishing a crime scene that spanned several blocks. The scale of the attack quickly became apparent, overwhelming local resources. The FBI swiftly took the lead in the investigation, recognizing the potential for this to be an act of terrorism. Simultaneously, a desperate search for answers began. Who was the shooter? What was his motive? These questions hung heavy in the air as the nation grappled with the sheer horror of what had unfolded. The attack immediately sent shockwaves throughout the LGBTQ+ community, who felt targeted and vulnerable. The fear was palpable, not only in Orlando but across the nation. News of the massacre spread rapidly through social media and news outlets, leaving a trail of grief and disbelief in its wake. The attack at Pulse Nightclub represented a brutal assault on a community that had long fought for acceptance and equality. The fact that it occurred during Pride Month, a time of celebration and visibility, only deepened the sense of tragedy. As the death toll steadily climbed, so too did the collective anxiety. People were afraid to gather in public spaces, particularly those associated with the LGBTQ+ community. The attack had struck at the heart of a sense of safety and belonging. The fear was not just about the immediate threat, but also about the underlying hatred that seemed to have fueled the attack. The shooter's online activity and reported pronouncements of allegiance to ISIS added a terrifying layer of complexity to the investigation. The attack highlighted the ongoing struggle against extremist ideologies and the devastating consequences of intolerance. It underscored the vulnerability of marginalized communities and the urgent need for greater understanding and acceptance. The attack at Pulse was more than just a mass shooting. It was a hate crime, a tragic testament to the enduring power of prejudice and bigotry. The echoes of the gunfire would continue to reverberate long after the last ambulance had left the scene. Let's delve deeper into the psychological profile of Omar Mateen. While outwardly he presented himself as a seemingly ordinary security guard, a closer examination reveals a complex and contradictory individual. His ex-wife described him as volatile and abusive, prone to fits of rage. Co-workers reported erratic behavior and alarming statements expressing extremist views. He pledged allegiance to ISIS during the attack, yet his motivations appear muddled. Some reports suggest he frequented the Pulse nightclub prior to the attack, raising questions about internalized homophobia or a possible struggle with his own sexuality. This contradictory behavior adds another layer to the complexity of understanding the driving forces behind this horrific act. It's a stark reminder that perpetrators of such violence often conceal their true nature beneath a veneer of normalcy. The contradictions in Mateen's life are indeed baffling. He was married with a child, seemingly integrated into American society. He held a steady job and portrayed himself as a family man. Yet beneath the surface, there was a simmering anger, a fascination with violence, and a growing adherence to extremist ideologies. His social media activity revealed a morbid interest in terrorist groups and mass shootings. He had been investigated by the FBI twice prior to the attack, but insufficient evidence prevented further action. This begs the question, were there missed opportunities to intervene? Could something have been done to prevent this tragedy, given the warning signs, however fragmented they might have been? It's crucial to examine these inconsistencies to understand the trajectory that led him down this path of violence. The FBI investigations into Mateen are particularly intriguing. In 2013, he was investigated for making inflammatory comments to coworkers about terrorist connections. A second investigation followed in 2014 regarding possible ties to an American suicide bomber. Both investigations were closed due to a lack of conclusive evidence. This raises critical questions about the challenges of identifying and preemptively addressing individuals who might be radicalizing. It also highlights the difficulty in balancing civil liberties with the need for effective surveillance and intervention. The information gathered during those investigations, while insufficient at the time, now offers valuable insights into the evolution of Mateen's mindset. Examining the timeline leading up to the attack is essential. In the weeks and days preceding the massacre, Mateen legally purchased the firearms used in the attack, including a semi-automatic rifle and a handgun. He also made several trips to the Pulse nightclub, seemingly casing the location. These actions suggest a degree of premeditation and planning, contradicting the notion of a purely impulsive act. It's chilling to think about the deliberate steps he took in preparation for this horrific event. The methodical nature of his preparations further deepens the mystery surrounding his motives and the complexities of his psychological state. It paints a picture of a man consumed by a darkness he carefully concealed from the world. Let's delve into the intricacies of the investigation following the Pulse nightclub shooting. The scale of the tragedy, with 49 lives lost and 53 injured, presented an immediate, immense challenge for law enforcement. The crime scene itself was chaotic and extensive, requiring meticulous processing to recover evidence amidst the devastation. One of the initial focuses was determining whether Mateen acted alone or as part of a larger network. The FBI pursued this line of inquiry vigorously, examining Mateen's communication records, online activity, and personal contacts. This involved sifting through vast amounts of data, seeking any evidence of collaboration or inspiration from extremist groups. While initial reports hinted at possible accomplices, the investigation ultimately concluded that Mateen acted as a lone wolf, albeit influenced by online propaganda. This realization shifted the investigation towards understanding his individual radicalization process and the specific factors that triggered his violent outburst. Adding to the complexity of the investigation was the presence of numerous witnesses, each with their own fragmented and often traumatic recollections of the events. The high-stress environment of the attack understandably impacted the clarity and consistency of eyewitness accounts. Investigators had to painstakingly piece together the sequence of events from these varied perspectives, cross-referencing them with physical evidence and security footage. Another significant challenge was the sheer volume of digital data generated by the event. Hundreds of mobile phones belonging to victims and survivors were recovered from the scene. Extracting and analyzing data from these devices, while respecting the privacy of the victims, was a complex and time-consuming task. This digital evidence ultimately proved crucial in reconstructing the timeline of the attack and understanding Mateen's movements within the nightclub. Amid the chaos and urgency, there were instances of misinformation and false leads that briefly diverted investigative resources. For instance, early reports emerged of Mateen pledging allegiance to different terrorist organizations, adding confusion to the initial assessment of his motivations. These claims required thorough verification, consuming valuable time and effort. Furthermore, the intense media scrutiny surrounding the case led to a proliferation of rumors and speculation, some of which hindered the investigation by distracting law enforcement and creating unnecessary anxieties within the community. One particularly disturbing aspect of the investigation was the emergence of taunting communications from Mateen during the siege. He made several calls to 911 and engaged in social media posts, claiming responsibility for the attack and expressing allegiance to ISIS. These chilling communications offered a glimpse into his mindset during the attack and provided valuable, albeit unsettling, insight into his motivations. However, these communications also presented a tactical challenge for negotiators. Understanding his demands, assessing his mental state, and attempting to de-escalate the situation without further bloodshed became paramount. Tragically, despite these efforts, the siege ultimately ended in a violent confrontation. The emotional repercussions of the Pulse Nightclub shooting extended far beyond the immediate aftermath. The trauma inflicted on survivors, many of whom witnessed horrific acts of violence and suffered life-altering injuries, continues to manifest in various ways. We've heard accounts of persistent anxiety, flashbacks, difficulty sleeping, and deep emotional distress. Some survivors struggle with the guilt of surviving when others did not, a complex emotional burden known as survivor's guilt. Beyond the individual level, the collective trauma experienced by the LGBTQ+ community is profound. The attack targeted a space that represented safety and acceptance, shattering the sense of security for many. The families of the victims, of course, experienced unimaginable grief and loss. The sudden and violent nature of their loved ones' deaths made the grieving process even more challenging. Many families found themselves thrust into the public eye, navigating their personal sorrows, while also dealing with media attention and legal proceedings. The emotional toll on these families is immeasurable. We've learned through interviews and public statements that many families continue to grapple with anger, sadness, and a profound sense of emptiness years after the tragedy. The ripple effects of the shooting extend to the broader Orlando community as well. The city came together to mourn and support the victims and their families, but the event left a lasting scar on the community's psyche. The Pulse nightclub shooting also exposed existing societal biases and prejudices against the LGBTQ+ community. The fact that the attack targeted a gay nightclub underscored the vulnerability and marginalization that many members of the community still face. This realization further compounded the trauma for many individuals, who felt not only the pain of the loss, but also the sting of discrimination. The long-term effects of this trauma are still being understood. Ongoing support for survivors, families, and the community is crucial in addressing the psychological, emotional, and social consequences of this devastating event. The attack led to a heightened sense of fear and unease, particularly within the LGBTQ+ community. Many individuals reported feeling less safe in public spaces, and some even expressed reluctance to visit places associated with LGBTQ+ culture. This fear, fueled by the horrific nature of the attack and the underlying homophobia it exposed, can have long-lasting effects on individuals' sense of security and belonging. The tragedy underscored the urgent need for greater understanding, acceptance, and protection of the LGBTQ+ community. The long road to healing requires not only addressing the individual and collective trauma, but also dismantling the societal structures that perpetuate discrimination and violence. The weeks leading up to the attack revealed a man spiraling, though the full extent of his descent remained obscured to those around him. His online activity, later scrutinized by investigators, painted a picture of increasing radicalization and fascination with extremist ideologies. He purchased firearms legally, despite a previous investigation by the FBI which had closed due to lack of conclusive evidence linking him to terrorist groups. His wife, interviewed extensively after the attack, claimed ignorance of his plans, stating that while he had become increasingly volatile, she never suspected he was capable of such violence. This claim, of course, remains a point of contention, with some investigators suspecting a degree of complicity, though no charges were ever filed against her. The picture we have is of a man driven by a complex mix of personal demons and external influences, a volatile combination that ultimately led to tragedy. The night of the attack, June 12, 2016, began like any other Saturday night at Pulse Nightclub. Patrons were dancing, socializing, celebrating Latin night. Security footage from inside and outside the club shows Omar Mateen arriving at approximately 2 a.m., armed with a Sig Sauer MCX semi-automatic rifle and a Glock 17 9mm semi-automatic pistol. He began firing indiscriminately into the crowd, creating immediate chaos and panic. The initial shots were mistaken by some for fireworks or part of the music, a chilling testament to the sudden and unexpected nature of the attack. Within minutes, the scene inside the club became a horrific tableau of carnage. the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and the screams of the injured and dying. The ensuing 3 hours were a harrowing standoff between Mateen and law enforcement. He barricaded himself inside the club with hostages, communicating with police negotiators by phone. During these calls, he pledged allegiance to ISIS and made various demands, the specifics of which remain somewhat unclear due to conflicting reports. What is clear is that his motivations were a tangled web of homophobia, religious extremism, and personal grievances. He railed against American foreign policy and expressed hatred for the LGBTQ+ community, his words chillingly echoing the rhetoric of hate groups prevalent online. This chaotic communication provided fragmented glimpses into the mind of a killer, but also crucial information for the negotiators and tactical teams working to resolve the situation. At approximately 5 a.m., after a period of increasingly erratic behavior from Mateen and growing concern for the safety of the remaining hostages, the decision was made to breach the club. An armored vehicle was used to create an opening in the wall, and a fierce firefight ensued. Mateen was ultimately killed by police gunfire, bringing an end to the siege and the deadliest mass shooting by a single gunman in U.S. history up to that point. The scene inside the club was described by first responders as a scene of unimaginable horror, a grim testament to the devastating power of hate and the enduring scars it leaves behind. The investigation into the attack was extensive, involving multiple agencies and spanning months. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? To consider that someone so consumed by hatred could exist among us, undetected, for so long. Mateen's online activity, though disturbing in retrospect, didn't trigger any significant alarms. He passed background checks, legally purchased firearms, and interacted with his community without raising substantial red flags. The warning signs, if there were any, were subtle, whispered, and lost in the noise of everyday life. This case truly underscores the difficulty in identifying individuals radicalized to violence, especially when they operate within seemingly ordinary lives. The challenge for law enforcement and intelligence agencies becomes incredibly complex, balancing individual liberties with the need for proactive security measures. How do we prevent another tragedy when the perpetrators hide in plain sight? Indeed. The Pulse Nightclub shooting forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that evil can lurk beneath the surface of normalcy. Mateen's outwardly unremarkable life, juxtaposed with the horrific violence he perpetrated, highlights the insidious nature of such attacks. He was a husband, a father, a security guard, roles that suggest integration into society. Yet within him, a storm of hate brewed, fueled by a complex mix of homophobia, radical ideology, and possibly personal demons. The investigation revealed a troubled individual grappling with internal conflicts, but nothing that definitively predicted the massacre. This case serves as a stark reminder of the limitations of profiling and the inherent difficulty in predicting human behavior, especially when it comes to acts of extreme violence. It's a puzzle with pieces that may never fully fit together. The tragedy at Pulse leaves us with a haunting question. How can we become more attuned to the subtle signs of radicalization, the whispers of hatred that might precede such devastating acts of violence, while respecting individual freedoms? How do we effectively identify and intervene before it's too late? This isn't just a law enforcement issue. It's a societal challenge that demands our collective attention. We must foster communities where individuals feel empowered to report concerning behaviors, without fear of stigmatization or reprisal. Perhaps, if someone had noticed something, anything, and spoken up, the course of that fateful night might have been altered. The echoes of the gunshots at Pulse still reverberate, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary individuals. The 49 lives lost that night represent a profound loss, a void in our world. As we grapple with the aftermath and strive to learn from this tragedy, we are left with a lingering sense of unease and the chilling realization that the potential for such violence exists within our communities, hidden in plain sight. And the question remains, how can we, as a society, work together to prevent such horrors from happening again? Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant. This case remains unsolved. Perhaps the truth is still out there,